second part of our title, the Swa, self-development, to understand ourselves a little bit better. So I think I've referred to Sri Aurobindo the revolutionary, Sri Aurobindo the philosopher, Sri Aurobindo the lover of India, and so many things. And I think maybe Sri Aurobindo the poet also. I think I read some lines from Savitri. So I'll start with a few more lines from Savitri. Savitri, by the way, is the longest poem in English language. So he said in there, a death-bound littleness is not all we are. Immortal our forgotten vastnesses await discovery in our summit selves. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours. Unmeasured breadths, vastnesses, and depths of being are ours. We can be as vast, as wide as the ocean and beyond, and as deep as the worlds below and above, as high. So in another imagery he described, the true spirituality is when you heighten your consciousness, widen your consciousness, and deepen your consciousness, all at the same time. Because deepening takes us more and more to the truth of our being, widening takes us more and more to bring everyone along, because it is not just for my own sake that I am seeking the spirit, and heightening takes us to the realms beyond. So if that is the truth of our being, we are not just born to die. Our journeys, our lives must have some meaning, is to discover that. Immortal, our forgotten vastnesses await discovery in our summit selves. So we are not one self, that is for sure. We are a composite being. There are many little eyes hiding within us, each wanting to assert itself. Hence the title, Our Many Selves. And we have to, like everything else, go back to the ancient rishis who gave us, through their own spiritual realization, the truth of what this existence, what this cosmic existence is all about. And I think the question in the previous session was about why the Indian thing gave a noblest and grandest vision. Even the vision of the cosmic existence was the grandest. So they said we are not just living on this plane of existence that we see, but there are many other planes on which existence is, but that is beyond our vision, beyond our ordinary experience of life. So Vedic vision speaks of the cosmos in the sense of that there are 7 planes of consciousness on which existence is. And then they conveniently, we were also systematic people, Shastra type of people, so we systemized knowledge. So they divided those 7 planes into 2 hemispheres, the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. The lower is the aparardha. Ardh means circle, parardha, half circle. The lower hemisphere and the upper hemisphere, parardha. Para means beyond. That is beyond what we can ordinarily experience. So the lower hemisphere is what we ordinarily experience. That plane of consciousness is number 5, 6 and 7 in this slide. Starting from the 7, matter, we cannot go wrong. We see matter, right? We are existing on matter. That is the lowest plane on which existence is. Beyond matter is life, right? Only on matter life exists. So that is another plane of consciousness. We all have that. The Annamaya Purusha, the Pranamaya Purusha, the life. And then beyond life is mind. This is the lower hemisphere. This is where we are all. These are the planes of consciousness that have been firmly established in existence. Hence, all existence revolves around these three planes. Our inner existence, that is why we are always thinking about food. We are always thinking about love in an ordinary sense. That's the demand of the life force in us. We want luxury. That is also the demand of life force in us. We want good books, good movies. That is also the demand of the mind force in us. Within each of these levels, these planes of consciousness are also ranges. Higher, lower. You can assign all that kind of thing. Because mind is not like one mind. Beyond mind, there are many other planes. But beyond these three, this is the lower, is the upper hemisphere, which is number 1, 2 and 3 in this slide. Number 1 is the pure existence. That's the name, the word Vedic rishis gave. Please don't bother about, I'll send out all these, whatever PowerPoints I have not sent. I was feeling embarrassed. I had sent her so much material, so I stopped. But I can send out more, no problems. And how many papers you'll print, so you can just send it electronically to whoever else wants. So if writing is a distraction, don't worry about writing. Just, just read through the thing. So the first plane in that higher hemisphere, the word they gave was Sat, which simply means existence. It also means truth, because how can it be untrue if it is existing? So it also the same thing, but Sat, the world of the highest truth of being. The second is the Chit, that is consciousness. Sat Chit, that is the world of infinite will or conscious force. Now, the Vedic rishis had used this word Chit. Sri Aurobindo just added one word. He said Chit Shakti. Because consciousness has to manifest only through Shakti. So Chit Shakti together is the second plane of in the higher hemisphere. And don't worry, I will not go deeper into the philosophy. It's just a way to set the context in order to explain what is coming next. And the third plane is Ananda. Now these three, I have put them as 1, 2 and 3, but actually they are one. Sachidananda. Sat Chit Ananda. Because at that level, there is no division. Only at the plane of matter, life and mind there is division, particularly at the level of mind. See, one amoeba and one tiger. Amoeba, one single-celled organism, or tiger, a much evolved life form, or a cow, much conscious life form, right? They may get along well, but one human being and another human being cannot get along very well, because in them mind is very active. Mind is technically an instrument of division. Mind classifies, mind divides, spirit unites. So in the higher hemisphere, Satchitanand had no problem being one. Hence the word Sachidanand, one. So Sri Aurobindo in English uses the word triune existence. It's not triple, because triple still means 1 plus 2 plus 3. Not 1 plus 2, like 1 plus 1 plus 1. Right? But triune is 1 that is 3. So that is the upper parardha and then the lower parardha. This is the way the Vedic rishis explained the cosmology. And then they said, now how will the upper connect with the lower? There has to be something in the middle, which is the link number 4. So that they called is the Vijnana. Remember, going back to the previous discussion we had, Vijnanamaya Kosha. This Vijnanamaya is the link world between the lower and the upper. Sri Aurobindo gave this word, this fourth world, the name of supermind. That if this consciousness can come down on earth, a new creation can begin. Everything that has been created so far, including what Ram and Krishna and Shiva and Vishnu and everybody, Muhammad and Jesus have been able to do, is at the level of mind. We needed a new consciousness, which is only that can come from a higher plane of consciousness. That is the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is essentially the work of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. But for that, we will have to do another workshop on their yoga. But just to give you a brief hint, this super mind is where, because this is where unity can begin to come in. Up until now, why do we have so many religions? Why do we have so many spiritual masters? Because everything is a creation of the mind. And mind likes diversity. Mind likes division. Because through mind, it's an entertainment for the mind. We get bored quickly, right? So we keep changing colors, we keep changing fashions, and we keep changing our preferences in food and stuff like that. So supramental creation will not bring uniformity, but it will bring truth. Because on this plane, as the Veda tells us, is another triune truth, which is the truth of Satyam, Ritam, Brahat. There is truth there. There is right there. Ritam also means right cosmic order. And Brihat, there is vastness there. And if there is vastness, there is room for everything. There is room for diversity without uniformity. Right? So this consciousness has to be the link word. And all spirituality, actually at its very core, is about going beyond the mind to the supermind. But it doesn't work just like that. There are stages in between, which Sri Aurobindo has also explained. And if we have time, we'll go there. Otherwise, we don't have to. But I think in some of your notes, I've given a diagram to explain the ranges of the mind. How do you jump from mind to supermind? It is not an easy thing. We can't even get to mind. We are still very much on the matter and life. So this is how, from the Veda to Sri Aurobindo, the truth of cosmos is there. Now, the other interesting thing is this is not just abstract philosophical cosmic truths. All these are within us also. Except that we have only evolved up to the level of mind, because that has been the level of cosmic evolution. But we are capable of bringing in all these other higher consciousness also. Which is what I think somebody read out that quote. An individual is a spirit working through life on the way to the Godhead. This is the Godhead. Ultimate Godhead is the Satchidanand. Right? So this is our journey from matter, life and mind. And then there is below matter also, there are neither worlds. You know what in Indian languages we know as Patal Lok. And there are gradations, 7, systematic, everything very Shastra. There are 7 Patal Loks Puranas have spoken about. But we don't need to go there because we are not people of hell. So we are all at the level of matter. Okay, so this is the Vedic vision of the 7 worlds. Now what does it mean just for us? For us is to we need to identify what plane of consciousness we are operating from, so that we can try to heighten, try to go higher, try to widen and try to deepen. So the whole point of life, the whole aim of life has to know is what Indian thought has told us is to know yourself and to master yourself. If you can do that, you are very close to the divinity. To know yourself and to master yourself. Completely master yourself. So this means, as the mother explained, to be conscious of one's own inner truth, conscious of the different parts of one's being and their respective functions. You must know why you do this, why you do that. You must know your thoughts, feelings, all your activities, all your movements, of what you are capable. And to know oneself is not enough. This knowledge must bring a conscious control. Go back to the story of Krishna being ridiculed in Yudhishthir's court, and he listens to all the abuses given to him by Shishupal, and then the 100th abuse comes and then he says, that's it, you're gone, right? 100 abuses he simply heard. Complete control. We wouldn't pass first abuse, right? But that killing was important because there was another agenda to it. But we don't have to do that. But these stories, if we can get to a sense of these, can tell us so much about the higher truths. That's why these stories were made. Because we are not capable of understanding philosophy all the time. Okay, so complete control of yourself. So how do we begin to know ourselves? In Sri Aurobindo's Integral Yoga Psychology, he has given very complex ways. I've tried to simplify things a little bit here. But basically he talks about an outer being, an inner being, and an inmost being. Outer being, inner being, and inmost being. Often in the traditional Indian scriptures, you only find the difference between the outer, the Purusha, the inner being, the Purusha, and the outer being, the Prakriti. But Sri Aurobindo goes a little bit beyond because he emphasizes the inner being because it plays a very important role, often which is ignored or somewhat neglected. And I'll tell you what that is. So the Prakriti and the Purusha, most probably many of you have heard these terms, right? Is there anyone who hasn't heard Purusha and Prakriti? Okay. So Purusha is the being and Prakriti is nature. That which is a construction or a creation of the modes of nature. The three primary modes of nature are Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. This is there in everyone. It does not matter what faith we are coming from, what language we speak, what food we eat, what culture we come from, whether we are born in Switzerland or India or Timbuktu or wherever. It is there, it's a truth of the nature. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. The Tamas is the mode of nature which is, in simple words, is described as inertia. One that doesn't want to move, evolve, change, static. Rajas is dynamism, the force of dynamic action. Sattva is the force of harmony and balance, right? So it's there in all of us. Anything that is an amalgamation of these three modes is a construction of Prakriti. Our outer being totally operates at this level. Sometimes Sattva is high, sometimes Rajas is high, sometimes Tamas is high, those kinds of things. And we have a different proportion. It keeps varying throughout the day. It's varied in all of us, right? I could be like a person who is a soldier has to have a big Rajas working in him, right? The one who is an educator, teachers, we have to have a little bit more of Sattva, that harmony and balance, and yet a good amount of Rajas, dynamism also, right? Inertia, Tamas is not going to help us too much like that. So all that is Prakriti. Purusha is a little deeper, one that is static, that is behind the working of all these outer modes. So it will become a little clear as we go along. So what is this outer being? The outer physical, I have heard that you all know these things, physical, vital, mental, right? So I'm not going to go deeper into it. I'll just quickly skip over some of these things. So the outer being is the physical, the outer, the matter, body with its distinct consciousness, the vital, the prana, the life nature, the emotional being, all of that which is a combination of our feelings, instincts, desires, impulses, the life energy, all of that is the vital, the mind. Most of us think that we are only mind, which is a big mistake we do. We are a combination of all these three. But mind specifically is that part of us which has to do with this action of cognition and thinking and reason and intellect. That is truly the work of mind. So it deals with ideas, thoughts, mental movements and formations. So I'm just skipping it. So these are three separate but not so separate, because they also like to combine themselves. This, which is what makes us so complicated beings, which is why we can't get along so easily with one another, because we are not just body, mind and vital. We are also combination of body and vital, vital and mind, body, mind and vital, and many different permutations possible. So we'll talk of some of these things, how they mix up. So there is a proper mind, which is where we would all like to be ideally. The pure thinking mind, which is buddhi. Interesting, na? How in Hindi we have a word buddhu and then we have a word buddhi. It comes from the same thing. And buddha. So from buddhu to develop buddhi and then to become buddha. That is the goal of life. Right? But this also tells you why Buddha's was mostly like mind-based thing. He had such a control on his mind. So he could awaken. He could see the limitations of the mind and rise beyond mind. Right? Hence the word Buddha. Otherwise he was happy being Siddhartha, not knowing that there was something called suffering. So there is mind proper. That is the thinking mind, the buddhi, which is concerned with ideas and knowledge in their own right. You just like to play with ideas. Why? Because why not? Like that. That is the role of buddhi. Why? I am nowhere close to supermind, but why not read one other research paper on supermind? That is the work of buddhi, right? I'm not even closer to mind, but why not read about supermind? But there is delight in that. So it's for the delight of the mind we do that. We have to remember that. Not for the delight of the ego. The second subdivision of mind is the dynamic mind. It is that part of the mind which actually brings ideas, converts them into action, which is where Jayashree comes into being. Right? So I want to homeschool my children, but I also want to homeschool, give right education to other children. So dynamic mind at work. It converts ideas into action. For realization of ideas, for having the will, vision. By the way, buddhi is not only concerned purely with ideas. If you go back to Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna makes it very simple. When he says chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, the buddhi yoga, he is not just talking about live in ideas. Always remember, Gita is given in the war battlefield. There is action going on. Kurukshetra means kshetra of action. Right? It is not a kshetra of ideas. So, buddhi also means having the will, conscious will to implement ideas. But it is not buddhi's role to actually convert it into ideas. That is the role of dynamic mind. Buddhi has its, Sri Aurobindo translates that chapter as yoga of the intelligent will. There has to be intelligence, the intellect, and there has to be a will to do something with that intelligence. So one can have grand vision. That is not buddhiman. Buddhiman has to have that will also. And then through the dynamic mind, through the Agnya Chakra. So I've used some of these Indian terminologies also for those of you who are familiar. Then there is an externalizing mind, like what I'm trying to work with at the moment, to express whatever little I know through this expression, through a means of expression that comes through my throat chakra. This is also a function of the mind. See, now throat is a physical organ, and yet there is mind working through it. So you see how complex things become? Through the same throat, I can also start abusing, right? Or with a purifying mind, I can use the same organ to do other things also. So how we become more and more complicated. So externalizing mind is the concerned with expression of ideas and knowledge with mental forces in life, not only by speech, but by any form it can give. Actually, like singer or a poet, not just a teacher or a lecturer or anything, even an artist. It's the externalizing mind, the painter, who will bring that vision through his or her colors, sketches, sculptures, whatever, illustrations. That's the work of the externalizing mind. And then there is something called physical mind, which is always concerned about the physical needs. This is more under the grip of tamas. It has inertia, obscurity, mechanical repetitiveness. We have all experienced this. When our mind is constantly running the same thought again and again and again, it's a problem of the physical mind. Obsessive compulsive disorder is actually not a psychological disorder as such. It is simply that the person is stationed way too much in the physical mind. So the simple technique often given is to rise out of inertia. So that's the kind of mind which becomes too much taken over by the tamas. This is the mind, the part of mind that also has repetitive doubts. People who suffer very bad versions of OCD also have this problem of doubt. There is a lot of self-doubt that comes with it. So anytime we begin to feel some of that, know that it is the physical mind in us that is taking over too much. So we have to come up with strategies as to how to rise out of the physical mind, maybe into, this is why art therapy works, because through physical mind you can actually go more towards the externalizing mind, allowing the things to come out through external action. Right? So all of this is based in deep yogic psychology. So it will be good for you to kind of have a sense of why we are doing what we are doing at, your jobs. So in that sense. And then below physical mind is another nasty little fellow called mechanical mind. And this mechanical mind is totally like an out of control machine, which will not let you sleep, which will not let you just experience a sense of quietness. So we have to be very conscious and cautious of that. So that runs like a machine throughout, out of control. So the first, why pranayam works is because it helps us control the mechanical mind. It helps us regulate through the breath. It helps us put a check on mechanical mind and a little bit of the physical mind. So this is how complicated we are just at the level of mind. And these are important ones. There can be layers within that. In the vital also, then mind also has to mix up with vital. This is why often our film wala people get confused when they have to write love songs for hero, heroines. Man yahan hai ki yahan hai, they keep forgetting man se pyar hai. I don't know, like mind se pyar hai. Manas is the in Hindi word. So, because they are all mixed up in us. Right? So attraction is not a quality of the vital, it's a quality of the mind. You see old Hindi film, you'll find that. I mean, they just haven't figured it out. I am not joking, I've done a research on that. So you just 70s and all those Mumtaz, Rajesh Khanna songs, you'll find this problem, man. So man is basically mind, not vital. So attraction can come through mind also, but often it comes through vital. But the problem is why they are confused is because this is the truth of our being. Our vital is mixed up with mind. So there is something called, what Aurobindo calls as vital mind or mental vital. He also doesn't know what to call it. So he's used both terms for it, mental vital or vital mind. This is the part of the mind that gives forms to desires and passions. So I am attracted to so and so. How do I write a love letter? Vital is not going to write it. Mind is going to write it. Right? So it is that part of the mind which gives an expression to the vital urges. Right? Bad love poetry and all that stuff that we have done in our teenage. That is the vital mind's function. It also finds arguments for desires. Yeah, she is the right one for me. He is the right one for me. It will give you logical argument, as if attraction has logic behind it. No? So you see how confused we can get? It justifies, it imagines, it builds up things. Oh, she is the one. And tomorrow she will say something and no, she was not the one. So it just builds up and then it breaks down. So you see how complex we can get? This is the vital mind's function. Then there is a little bit better fellow, which is the emotional vital. This is where really good things are. Love, joy, sorrow, hatred. I mean, sorrow, hatred are not good things, but they can be good in the sense that at least they are pure emotions. So it is good to know when we are in a state of sorrow. It is also good to know when I am in a state of hatred. So I will know how to deal with it, or why this hate is arising in me. So this is the Anahat Chakra that traditionally we speak of. This is the seat of various feelings. Often in ordinary language we say it as heart. Then there is the central vital, which is the Manipura Chakra in Tantra. This is typically the seat of ego. Actually, ego is everywhere. Ego is on all those levels of mind also. But typically, in the lower chakras, ego is very much there. It's a seat of the ego because this is where we have very strong desires, passions, longings, ambition, pride, fear. All these things reside in these lower chakras. So anytime you find ambition rising up in you, it's this lower chakras that are functioning. So hence there is this whole psychological toolbox or toolkit of working through your chakras, refining the chakras like that. This is where you also have attraction, repulsion. Actually, even like romantic attraction often would begin from the lower chakras until you rise up in your consciousness and you know that I'm attracted to so and so because of something else. But that's a different kind of thing. Often teen attractions begin at these lower levels. Repulsions, desires, passions. Then there is even something lower than that, the lower vital, which is often occupied with, see, it's lower in the hierarchy and yet it is so predominant in us. This is where our petty desires and petty feelings are the concern of this part in us. Desire for food, sex, petty likes, petty vanity, petty quarrels, love, praise, anger when blamed. We often forget this part. And I mean, this is why I love Aurobindo. He even used, anger when blamed. He would not even forget this feeling. The moment somebody tells you, oh, you have done this wrong, you just immediately get angry. It happens. Many times it happens. Know that this is a very, 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 very petty emotion that is arising from very lower part of your vital. As if you are blameless, you are not capable of any mistake. Why? Because it's a direct blow on the ego. So the lower the vital is, the bigger the pull, the bigger the force of the ego. As we go higher and higher into the mind can have a very strong ego, and yet the more closer we are to buddhi and intellect, we can objectify and separate ourselves. Maybe she is right, maybe he is right, maybe I have made a mistake, maybe objectively I need to look at this. So that's the work of buddhi, the intellect, right? And then the will be, maybe I need to change this. But as long as we are stationed in our lower vital, how dare she say this, that I have done this wrong? That's the work of the lower vital. So why this thing helps is to become aware of everything that is happening within us. And then there is the Mooladhara, the vital physical, again, which is totally reacting to the outward things. There is thunder and you just immediately do this. It's a very vital physical reaction, right? There is no logic to it because it's either coming from an involuntary motion, movement of the physical combined with the vital that feels some threat, right? Somebody shouts outside and says, oh, what has happened, right? Or you are watching a movie, you know it is all fake, and yet you're sitting, oh, as if something is going to happen. It's a very vital physical reaction, right? Simply reaction to the outward things. It's a part of the nervous being, the reflex sensations and emotions. Now comes this fellow called ego. So ego is all of this that we've been discussing. This is still outer being, remember, the outer prakriti. So ego, as I said earlier, so I'm just going to go a little faster, an instrument constituted by the nature, prakriti, which is at once a mental, vital and physical formations. Hence it's there on all levels to aid in centralizing and individualizing the outer consciousness. This word individualizing is important. we should not say that individualism is a bad thing, because if there is no individual, there cannot be a group. Look at history. Everything worthwhile has been done by individual, not by masses. Every good thing ever has been done by an individual. So individual is, to individualize, ego is an instrument which has been a creation of nature. Individualizing the outer consciousness and action, it gives us a sense of being separate individual with a separate identity. So far good. It's a good thing. The problem is when it becomes egoism. Because what happens, this egoism is this tendency to pull everything towards me. Me and mine alone. That is where it becomes a problem. So egoism is when you want to pull everything towards you and other people do not interest you. That is called egoism. By the way, wherever you see CWSA, it's complete works of Aurobindo. Wherever you see CWM, it's collected works of the mother. So just different volume numbers. So when you want to pull everything towards you, that is egoism. So anytime you see this rising in you, it's your egoism at work. That is where ego has begun to become a bar. Ego is the reason, ego was the helper, ego is the bar when it becomes egoistic. When you put yourself at the center of the universe and all things exist only in relation to you. When you are angry, you are egoistic. When you are depressed, at that time also you are egoistic. Think about it. You feel that nobody understands me. When you have this feeling, why should they understand you? What have you done to deserve to be understood? Do you understand yourself? If you start thinking like that, your depression, I'm not belittling the disease. It can be a serious problem. I'm not belittling that. But many times, like we were talking, like, little kids are saying we are depressed because it is simply they think nobody understands me. So that is just nothing but their ego saying that. So if we all can work around that, we can help others work around that. But again, it does not mean that there are no serious cases of mental health. Now this is all the outer. We have mastered the outer, so we go a little bit inner. Not yet to the inmost, but a little bit to the inner. So outer being, Aurobindo says, is a means of expression only. And here we were thinking now that we know ourselves. He says it's not oneself, it's only a means of expression. And all our life, we worry about this means of expression. But we haven't even identified what the true self is. For that, we have to begin this inner journey. So from outer to a little bit to inner. So we should not identify too much with the outer. For what it expresses is a personality formed by the old ignorant nature. It's simply a creation of the nature, prakriti. If you have too much sattva and very little rajas, you will be more of a thinker type, more living in your sometimes abstract philosophical ideas. If you have more of the tamas, you will be a lazy bum with a little bit of rajas, do enough to sustain yourself and not worry about happy-go-lucky kind, just theek hai, mil raha hai khana, don't have any big plans, don't have any big ideas. If you have more of the rajas combined with sattva, you have some idea, some vision and dynamism also, you will be driven person. So it is still a very outer personality. If you want to go inward, don't identify yourself too much with it, which is where spirituality begins to come in. If not identified, one can easily change it, which is where the story of Valmiki comes, from a robber to a rishi. There are many stories, from Angulimal to there was some other rishi, some of the Buddhist texts we find. Many stories like that. Kali Das, total illiterate, becoming the Das of Kali and writing such great literature. So there are stories like that. So they were not identified too much with being robbers or whatever, illiterate. So they could even easily change their outer personality also. So we need to worry a little bit about the inner. That's again where Aurobindo says you have an inner mind, inner vital, inner physical. See how complex we are? So how can any marriage last is a wonder, is a miracle, right? So inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, they are still Prakriti, they are still outer nature. But they have a little bit advantage than the outer. Their advantage is that they are a little bit more open. Remember, go back to the first slide. Why I worried about the Vedic cosmology? Because this is where now it begins to come in. This inner being in us, I said at that time the Vedic cosmology, those planes of consciousness are there in the objective cosmos and are also within us. So these little fellows that are the inner mind and the inner vital, inner physical are actually open to all kinds of universal forces. How wonderful. So if there is I'll explain it very simply. When you walk into a place like we were talking about, how wonderful it is to feel in Freedom Land. Why do we feel wonderful? What is the vibe here as youngsters stay these days? This place has nice, good, cool vibes. This place doesn't have good vibes. I can connect with that person's energy and I cannot connect with that person's energy. All this language is coming from this truth that there are all kinds of forces around us. If those are positive forces, these inner beings can connect with them. They are open to those forces. If they are harmful forces, negative forces, the same inner beings can open to them also. They don't have consciousness of their own. They just have this advantage that just like the sthul sharira is not open to the outer force, the little bit subtler sharira is open to the outer force. So I'll tell you another example. COVID. We just had COVID 2 years ago. COVID was spreading not so much, and today many people will agree, scientists will also agree, it was spreading through germs, spreading through, whatever things, we were washing vegetables and all that, but it was spreading more through fear. And this is something that not many have done enough research on, but eventually they will do it, because communities where they did not allow too much of this force of fear to come in, they remained very safe. Some of the tribal areas where they didn't have constant 24/7 news channels telling them how bad COVID is and how people are dying in the streets, they did not have that much of a problem. Why? Because they did not allow that force to come in. Their inner beings were not open to that force, right? So these inner beings have this advantage that they are open to the force, outside forces, and the same can be a disadvantage also. This is why education is so important in the right sense of the word, because education can help guide the inner being towards the right kind of influences. This is why it is said satsang is so important. Reading the right kind of books is so important. Watching right kinds of movies, listening to the right kind of music, all influences. Because it's not the outer mind that will connect with that, it's the inner mind. It's the subconsciously, what we ordinarily say, it's subconsciously what we attract, right? So that's why it's important to know this inner being a little bit. Now, these inner parts in us, Sri Aurobindo says, can remain totally vulgar, totally crude, depending on the forces to which it has been introduced. Or it can also be come in connection with the higher forces, which is why so much emphasis is given to beautifying the spaces, creating positive energy, right? All that was also part of our religious practices. Exactly because this knowledge was there, that the inner being has to be given the right kind of environment in which to grow. It is only by this virtue of inner consciousness that we can actually at all awaken to spiritual seeking. It's not the gross mind and body and vital. They will continue to have their, fights like externalizing mind and dynamic mind and all that. It's only because there is a little bit something subtler in us that we have a possibility to awaken to that higher force. And yet, because it is also open to all kinds of influences, this part is not capable of finding that peace and calm that the spirit seeks. So there will always be turmoil.
So
on its own it cannot do. It needs something more, which is where the inmost being comes in. Right? So we can provide excellent environment to the child, and yet the child will still remain at that level and not go beyond to a seeking of something deeper if that inmost thing is not brought out to the surface. And that is the function. I'm sorry, I will skip on this part. Yes.
So the inner light to the inner mind. How do we know when it's opened itself to unknown demonic forces or any other forces?
Well, when you have this urge to act on some of those things, I mean, can I give another example? This is one Hindi film, most of you haven't seen it, I'm pretty sure. It was called Aks. I loved that movie. Again, it's a movie made way before its time. Amitabh Bachchan and I forget who else was there, Manoj Vajpayee. Those of you who don't know Hindi, I'm sorry, you have to learn. But watch this movie. It's a badly made movie, but with a very good idea. So this character, Manoj Vajpayee's character, he's somehow a Krishna Bhakt or a Gita Bhakt at least. So he's like a serial murderer. And he says, why am I a serial murderer? Because I'm just doing God's action. And he'll call himself Nimitt Matra. How Krishna tells Arjun, be a Nimitt Matra Bhav Savya Sachin, just be my instrument. So he's saying, I am just an instrument of the God. He'll kill somebody and he'll say, I am just a Nimitt Matra. This is demonic force. Right? Sorry?
I just told nobody's getting ideas from this.
Yeah, nobody's getting idea. But still watch movie. You don't have to show your children this. Watch it and think about it. Reflect on it. I mean, the very word aks means mirror, reflection, right? So then the story goes that Manoj Vajpayee's demonic being enters into Amitabh Bachchan, right? So he becomes the demon now. He becomes the Nimitt Matra or something. Something like that happens. I forget the whole story. But the fact that it can take a spiritual truth and completely twist it, it's a demonic thing, right? So that's where it's not necessarily his soul quality. It's not the psychic. It is this inner subconscious. Aurobindo calls it subconscious. He also calls it subliminal. So subliminal can be very good. Subconscious can also have all kinds of demons in it. Our old pains, our old traumas all go into subconscious. So this journey of purifying oneself is not very simple. We can keep on removing things from us, and where are we throwing? We are actually putting them down in our subconscious. Many times they come up in our dreams. Our repressed, suppressed urges come up in our dreams, and they disturb. I've heard this from very advanced, that's not the word I want to use, because who is to say what is advanced, but very senior, age-wise, senior sadhaks who've been on the path of conscious yoga for decades and decades, and their very basic animalistic urges would come up in their 70s, in their 80s, because sometimes it's just been suppressed, not purified, not transcended. So inner being can create havoc also, right? So because it is open to all kinds of subconscious universal forces, which is why we are not on the safe ground until we get to the inmost, the psychic. So this is just another diagram. Yeah.
The point out here is a good self-awareness. We'll show you that. So when we are in the demonic or something is influencing us, if you pay attention to your inner being, it's not in harmony. There'll be either an ego trip or it won't be harmonious, it won't be peaceful. So in a way, the simplest, that's why the mother says, there's one thing you teach in the self-awareness to adults and to children. Even when we're in our ego, we feel out of harmony. So if we can pay attention to that, that's the simplest answer. Yes, till we reach the psychic being.
Yeah. So this is where we begin to a little bit more on a safer ground, where we can allow psychic being to take over our choice making process and decision making process. And I think I've given some explanation of this earlier in response to some question. So I'm just going to, this is what is called Chaitya Purusha, called the psyche or the psychic entity, which is a spark or portion of the divine present in all things and creatures. Why all things? Actually, all living things except gods. Gods don't have that. Gods meaning the Devata. I'll come to that when we discuss the Veda if there is time. I'm not talking of the Supreme, because Supreme is all Supreme, the divine. But those little gods who want to create problems also for us sometimes. We'll come to that. But all things also, there is a soul quality in it, that spark is there. And for example, flowers. Flowers, mother said, are the soul essence of the plant life, the vegetable kingdom, the plant kingdom. So that's why flowers are so tender. And then we also have Shiva, who likes just a bilwa leaf, who doesn't like flowers. So again, just for the sake of diversity, right? I mean, he likes flowers also, but he also likes leaves. But generally all divine beings like flowers. That's the soul, because when you are offer a flower to the divine, you are offering the soul to the divine, right? Breaking of the coconut is breaking of the ego, like that. Psychic being is one's own individual soul being. This is very important. It is not, my psychic is not same as your psychic. We all have a different psychic being in us, different psychic quality, which is very unique to us. That is what the beauty of this is. Atman is one, because Atman is simply same as Brahman. But the projection of Atman, which is the psychic, is individualized. It is not the divine, though it has come from the divine and develops towards the divine. But in a true sense, this is the beginning of yoga. This is the beginning of sadhana. When you try to seek the psychic within, you have started the journey of going within and seeking the truth of your being. This is where yoga begins. And Mother has written a lot about psychic education and how we can actually facilitate the psychic to come more and more in front. So psychic being, I was giving the example of Lakshmi Bai earlier. There's another example that came to my mind, Baji Prabhu Deshpande. If you know his story, what he did during a particular battle with Shivaji, how he gave up his life. Mind cannot do it. Mind's willpower cannot do that. There has to be a deeper quality, a psychic quality. If you haven't read Baji Prabhu's story, read it, what he was able to do at that time. We don't have time for that much of a story. So psychic being is the central being for the purposes of evolution. Baji Prabhu Deshpande, yeah. It grows and it develops. So it's not static. It is constantly growing through our multiple lifetimes, which is the saving grace if you think about it. Even without my doing anything, it is still growing. Sooner or later, we all have to go back to the divine, because that is the source from which we came. But if we can hasten that process, we'll be much better off. And yoga helps us hastening that process. So I think in one of your handouts, there is a drawing I've added, which was, you'll find it later. It's a drawing that Mother had done, a sketch. When a child had asked, Mother, what is yoga? So Mother said, she drew a little circle. Here as you, and then she put a circle on top. Here is the divine. And then she drew a line, dick, 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 zigzag, 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 zig. So she says, this is how through various lifetimes human will reach the divine. And then she drew a straight line between the zigzag. And she says, if you do yoga, you have a straight line to the divine. So, another movie example, one of my favorite movies, which I'm sure many of you have seen, Guide, Raju the Guide. Remember the last scene of the movie? Not the last, like towards the very end, where Raju tells this person who is saying, Raju, do this fast, rain will come. And he says, you don't know how bad I am, what a rotten being I am. I am in jail for a woman. I spent 10 years in prison because of this thing that I had done. He'd signed some counterfeit check or something like that. And it was all because of a dancing girl, he says. So he says, I've been a very bad person. So I'm not a yogi or somebody like that. And then this little simple villager says, but Bhagwan ke raaste bade tede mede hain. It's all the zigzag, zigzag, zig. If you do it with sincerity, rain will come. And he does it, and the rain comes. So, again, R.K. Narayan was not writing that novel just in a random way. These truths percolate when a writer's mind is receptive to the higher ranges. So, if you haven't watched it, watch it. If you haven't read the novel, read it. That's Raju's psychic being, growing and developing in one lifetime from prison to a yogi who can bring down rain, going through the zigzag. And yet, because in those 12 days that he fasts, he follows the straight path. He shortens the journey to that 12 days. There is individuality in the psychic being, but not egoism. This is the cure for egoism. Find your psychic being, you can have a very good relation with everyone. It's the egoism, the ego that fights. Psychic being doesn't fight, though it is individualized. This is the true individualism only India can offer to the world. This is why it is so important to know what the truth of India is. West has totally taken the individualism and mixed it up with egoism. Psychicization or the psychic individualism is the true individualism. Right? So this is where, and how do you allow the psychic to grow? Through love and surrender. But then Mother has given, so this is Sri Aurobindo, but Mother is very mother-like. So she can give you some, I'm not going to read the poetry. I want to actually go, because I'm mindful of the time, so I want to go to the work, how to find this little fellow called psychic. Yeah. But if there's time and if there's interest, we can go to some of those things. So how do you find this psychic? How do you become this beautiful being that you have to be? So just for some fun, maybe 6 of you can read each part, so I don't have to do all the reading. So we'll start with number 1, whoever wants to read. These are some practical tips, she said. If you want your psychic to take over your life, do these things. कुछ साधना भी तो करनी है ना, कुछ effort भी करना है. ऐसे ही नहीं भगवान मिल जाएंगे. Right? So we can pass on the microphone. Start with, no, read it in number 1. Let's keep some order.
Start with comfort, isn't it? So, comfort, give up all personal seeking for comfort, satisfaction, enjoyment or happiness. Be only a burning fire for progress. Take whatever comes to you as an aid to your progress and immediately make sure whatever progress is required.
Can we do that? Who said spirituality is just bhajan and kirtan? It's hard work. This is the basis for all sacred work. This is the basis for all inner journey. We get too comfortable. And that's why we keep having problems. So that's number 1. Never look for personal comfort. So number 2, anybody who would like to? Yes?
Number 2, pleasure. Try to take pleasure in all you do, but never do anything for the sake of it.
Most of the time we do just the opposite. I don't like to cook, so I will not cook. I'll order Swiggy, though we don't have, thank God for Pondicherry, we don't have Swiggy. Pondicherry, I don't live in towns. Where I live, we don't have that. So we have to cook. But try to take pleasure in whatever it is that you do. I've yet to fully come to that. Number third.
Agitated, never get excited, nervous or agitated. Remain perfectly calm in the face of all circumstances. And yet be always alert to discover what progress you still have to make and
Lose no time.
in making it.
Yeah, sorry, the font is a little small. Yeah? So never get excited, nervous or agitated. That's the third thing we have to do. This is not a complete list, by the way. There are a lot more. I just pulled out 6. Number 4, somebody would like to read?
Surface reaction. Never take physical happening at their face value. They are always a clumsy attempts to express something else. The true thing which escapes out superficial understanding.
Yeah. Most of the times our misunderstanding is because we take totally things at the surface value. Then we try to say, this is not really what I meant. You didn't understand me. This is not what I meant. But the initial reaction has already happened. Disharmony has already happened. Right? Mind has already come in and spoiled the relationship. So never take things at their surface value. Very difficult to practice. Number 5. Yeah, sorry, it's a little difficult to see, but...
Complaining. Never complain of the behavior of anyone unless you have the power to change in his nature what makes him act in this way. And if you have the power, change him instead of complaining.
Is there anyone here who has never complained of the behavior of anyone? Anyone? Anyone who has never complained? We love to do this. Right? And then we say we are spiritually, no. We are still very much guided by our mind's likes and dislikes. This is actually, when 1962 war happened between India and China, some people went to the mother and said, oh, he or she is saying this, our Prime Minister should have said this, our Prime Minister should have not said this. Mother simply said, and she said, shh, be quiet. This is the time and pray for, the safety of your soldiers and pray for the good of your country. This is not, what do you know what Prime Minister is going through? Unless you know what decisions he has to make through, what dilemmas he has to work through, you don't have any right to say anything. But this is our favorite pastime as a nation. Modi should have done this, Modi should not have done this. I mean, amazing, right? As if we know better what is going on. We love to do this. I mean, never do this. I mean, this is the problem of democracy. But this is a different forum. Last one. Yes.
Bold. One can find in everything a chance to progress in consciousness and self-mastery. And this effort for progress immediately makes the thing interesting, no matter what it is. The story of initiation.
That I will tell you. I was saving my breath for that. So there is another place Mother writes. This is again in her writings on education. She said this to some children. When children said, oh, I'm bored. She said, those who are bored easily are the most boring people. So if you are bored too easily, you don't know how to occupy your time. If you truly are a sincere learner, you will find everything that is happening, in everything an opportunity to learn and progress. So in that context, she told this story that I want to tell, and then we'll take a break. I'm sorry I've skipped too much because I really wanted us to get to the psychic being. That's the main thing. So the story is this, some mother had told this story of initiation. So the story goes that there was some fellow named Yusuf. It was a Gujarati story translated into English by someone that mother read out for children. I mean, she not read out, she like narrated it in English, in French, I think. Sorry, she couldn't have read Gujarati. No, so it was first translated in English and then she retold in French, I think. So the story goes that this little fellow Yusuf wants to go to school, like wants to study higher knowledge, the truths of the spirit, wants to become spiritually enlightened. So he goes to a guru in his village and he says, Master, you teach me the truths of the spirit. So the master says, come, join the class, there are few more. So then I may not remember the whole story, but I'm giving you the gist of it. And then 1 year passes. The master does not teach this little fellow anything. 1 year passes, 2 year passes, 3 year passes. Other people who had joined around the same time are given some instruction. Do this, do that, like the mother is giving instruction. This fellow was not given any instruction. So I think 12 years pass. I don't know, our Indian writers, storytellers used to like this number 12. So there is a reason why there are 12 years of education, formal education. In the Vedas also it's mentioned, 12 saal ki shiksha ke baad, Guruji ne kaha. So 12 years pass and then this Yusuf says, Master, you are not teaching me anything enough, give me something. So the master says, okay, you do one work for me. If you can do that well, I'll give you the secret. So you'll become spiritually enlightened. What is the work? Take this little box, cross the river, which is at the end of the village, go to the next village and give this box to my friend who is another spiritual master and just deliver this box to him. It's a long journey, but you can do it. Come back and I'll give you the secret. I'll give you the initiation into the secrets of spirit. So this Yusuf boy is very happy. He goes and then he's tired. So he takes some rest under a tree. He puts the box next to him. And then, by the way, master has given one instruction only. On the way, do not open the box. That's it. You can do whatever you want, take this detour, that detour, eat here, sleep there. Just don't open the box. Now, how does human mind work? When you are told don't do it, you have to do it, right? So this Yusuf fellow is sitting there, the box is there. What gems my master has told me? He has nothing. What could he be sending to his friend? I'm sure it's an empty box. So then other part of his mind says, let me just open. What's the worst that could happen? I'll just see it and then close it. Constantly this dilemma. He doesn't know the dharma of the shishya. Right? Somebody had that question. What is the dharma? He didn't know the dharma of the shishya, which is to obey the master. So after constant battle, let me just slide the box a little bit. And the moment he slides this lid, a rat jumps out and runs away. And now he can't find this rat in that whole forest. He's running here and there to look for that rat which was in the box. So he's very sad what to do, and he said, oh, I'm sure this was just a test. Nothing has been lost. I still will go and give it to my master's friend in the other village. So he goes and he hands and then he also justifies. You see the part of the mind that justifies. I'm sure he was not sending a rat. He was probably sending an empty box. So nothing has been lost. There must have been some coded message here and there. So he goes and very nicely gives the box to this other master. Says, my master has sent you this box. So this person is genuinely a spiritually realized person. And he says, without even opening, so you opened the box, huh? And Yusuf says, well, yeah, whatever, Then he says, this is the reason why your master has not yet initiated you into the spiritual knowledge. Because you're not ready to obey. You're not ready to surrender. Go back to Bhagavad Gita. What does the real lessons of Bhagavad Gita begin when Arjun says, I surrender to you. Show me what should I do. Before that he's arguing. He's arguing that if I kill my uncle, if I kill my guru, am I not the bad person? If I kill my whole khandan, what will happen to the lineage? He's still arguing. And then Shri Krishna is trying to explain to him few things. But then there comes a point where he says, I don't know what to do. I surrender. You tell me what to do. The real lessons begin. Same story. If you want to find that psychic within, surrender. First, surrender your ego. Start doing all these little practices. We should stop complaining. We should stop feeling bored. We should stop doing things simply because I like to do this and I don't like to do this. Stop seeking comfort. And yet, at the same time, not to undermine prosperity and a good, rich life, but not to get attached to those comforts. Tomorrow, if all those comforts of life are taken away, can I still remain happy? Then I am being led by my psychic. The problem is that if there is no electricity and if it's very hot, like it is always in Pondicherry, especially now, I can't sleep without an AC. Sorry, so I am seeking for my personal comfort. Right? So we are such creatures of such habits, such petty seekings. So that's where the word sadhana comes from, that sadhan. We have to make an effort. We have to, जैसे हिंदी में कहते हैं ना, उसे साधना है, उसे पाना है, प्रैक्टिस करके पाना है, एफर्ट करके उसे पोजेस करना है. So that sadhana is not an easy journey. The new age spirituality often can be very feel good because it can also very subtly feed our ego. But true spirituality is to go beyond all that. So this is where the journey of that, remember Brahman, Yoga and Dharma. This is the yoga, the beginning of the yoga. Right? So I think now we are all ready for a little bit of comfort. Like tea, petty things like tea. Once somebody asked Sri Aurobindo, which is better, tea or coffee? So Sri Aurobindo said, it all depends on whatever poison you like.